You've often got a group of friends telling you that it's dead easy. And then all those people who are struggling are not necessarily always willing to talk about it.
Any post where somebody is saying, do these 3 things to get pregnant this year, it's just really wildly unhelpful.
There are no guarantees in any fertility space. Those ones where you're being sold to all the time, that is a bit of a red flag to me.
I had been saying no to so many times where I could have been having a laugh with friends and family.
It's a completely safe space from any ads or announcements.
No thought that you have, no matter how intrusive or shameful it might feel, is ever unique. You're listening to the Too Much Information podcast, where no women's health topic is off limits. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you. This podcast would be nothing without you. Follow along if you're not already, and if you like what you hear, please spread the word. Enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome to this episode of Too Much Information. I am joined today by fellow podcaster Hannah Pearn from Don't Tell Me to Relax. We are doing a little experiment of a podcast swap, which is very exciting. Today we're talking all about trying to find your people when you are on a fertility journey, and whether you are right at the start of your journey or years and years in, or whether you're somebody who's thinking, how do I support my friend or my family member who is doing this when I do not relate at all? This one is for you. Hannah, the reason that I thought you would be a great person to talk to about this is because you have literally done this in a professional sense, virtually and also in person. And I'm in awe of the communities that you've built. So welcome. I'd love you to tell everyone a little bit about yourself, please.
Oh, thank you. And thanks for having me on. It's nice to be being asked the questions. It's a different vibe, isn't it, when you are not the host of the podcast? So thank you. It's a nice
100%.
experience to be here. So I am Hannah, and my company, my business, my love is called Don't Tell Me to Relax. I am an acupuncturist. I have been an acupuncturist for about 14 years. I recently rebranded everything under the Don't Tell Me to Relax brand. So we have a podcast, we have a community, and we have clinics in London and across the UK. And our role really is to support people who are trying to get pregnant. And back in the day, when I first went into practice as an acupuncturist, what I quickly realized was that you spend a lot of time sitting in a treatment room by yourself, working with people one-to-one. Which is fantastic because it is literally the best job in the world. But I come from a background where I used to be a teacher. I used to work in a team when I moved into charity work. And I really missed that connection for myself as a practitioner. And I realized that working one-to-one was not enough because I wasn't able to get the information to as many people as humanly possible. You can only ever work with the person that you're sitting with, and that person usually is at a certain place in life to be able to afford to access your treatment because it's private. And that was the only thing that didn't sit well with me. So what developed was, how can we do what we do in clinic, but do it to a wider audience? And so that's where the podcast and where the community came from, because it's about sharing all the wisdom, all the knowledge, all those conversations we have on a one-to-one level with people in clinic, and getting them out to as many people as possible. Not everybody wants to come and have acupuncture. Not everybody can afford it. Not everybody likes having needles stuck in them. But the information that we share, I think we're in a really unique place to do it. We've got a lot of wisdom from Chinese medicine, a lot of wisdom from Western medicine, and we combine that and we think about the body in a different way. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. It's just having that breadth of understanding on how you can look at the body and how you can look at lifestyle and what impacts it can be really, really empowering when you're on a fertility journey. So that is why we got to this place of having a team of practitioners, having our community and the podcast.
And I'm so glad that you do, because right from the very start, so well over a year ago, when my husband and I were just thinking about, starting a family and trying to conceive, I came across your podcast and since have worked my way through the back catalogue, because it's not just about acupuncture, is it? I know that
No.
that's your passion and your bread and butter, but it's covered so many topics, and you've had such an array of different guests, like real women and also experts from, as you say, Chinese and Western medicine on there. So it's great. Yeah.
You. I mean, it never fails to amaze me where we've got to, because I started it thinking, well, if a few people listen to this podcast and find it helpful, it's done its job. And it's just grown and grown and grown.
What can I ask? What inspired you to move into fertility acupuncture?
So I had acupuncture when I was pregnant. So that was my first experience of having acupuncture. What happened was I lived in China, never came across acupuncture, came back, worked in London, got pregnant. And then actually in my pregnancy, I was having problems around going into labour, and there was all kinds of issues around placenta problems and wanting to get me into hospital. And I really didn't want to go into a hospital because I'm quite hospital phobic. And someone said, have you ever tried acupuncture? And I was like, no, never really heard of it. Yeah. So I went to a lady who lived around the corner from me, who's called Emma Cannon. And she was the first person who really sold this idea of acupuncture being really supportive for fertility, for pregnancy, for women's health. She was like the spearhead in the UK. And she was my local practitioner. Wow. I was so lucky. And she gave me acupuncture at the end of that pregnancy, and I had an amazing birth. Then I got a thyroid problem. And so then I had acupuncture for my thyroid and then in my subsequent pregnancies. So I had that real first-hand experience of pregnancy, women's health, getting pregnant, supporting my body, and it was a game changer, and she was so inspiring. So then I retrained, and very quickly, because I had children, lots of people who came into my clinic were women, lots of people were looking for fertility support, and so I very quickly thought, hang on, this is what I need to do. I need to get good at this because I can't just be a general practitioner. I need to focus into one thing. Yeah. And so that's what I did. And interesting, when I did my acupuncture training, I suddenly remembered everything from living in China all those years ago. It all made so much sense. So all of the things around Chinese food, how to look after your health, this idea of hot and cold, balancing your energy, the importance of rest. I was like, it all kind of came together and made loads of sense. So it was a really interesting journey to get there.
Love it. I mean, it's amazing, and how cool that these two different parts of your life have kind of collided in a way.
It was like it was meant to be.
You took the words out of my mouth. I wanted to start with the question of, why do you think that trying to conceive can be such an isolating experience?
I think a lot of the time there is a really misconstrued understanding about what happens in a person's fertility. And I was just emailing someone in our community only last night about this, because I think people who conceive really easily and really quickly shout about it from the rooftops. Yeah. If you're in a group of friends and someone's got pregnant before they were even starting trying, or first time, or they weren't even trying, all that kind of stuff, they really like to talk about it. And then I think other people who maybe it's taking longer than anticipated really don't like sharing that information. It feels quite personal. It's very sensitive. They don't know how it's going to be taken. And so those people stay very, very quiet. And the people who don't have any problems are very, very loud. And so I feel like you can often feel, if you're that quiet person who's not sharing your experiences, that you're the only one that this is happening to. And then and these people who are shouting about it gives you this sense that nobody else has a problem. It's just you. Yeah. So I think that is one thing. The other thing that I think happens is that we are told repeatedly that unprotected sex leads to pregnancy. So we are instilled with this fear that sex leads to pregnancy, with no understanding that actually you can only conceive probably about 2 days, 3 days, depending on, your physiology, every single month. And so we have this, we take contraception for years and years and years, a vast majority of us, because we do not want to get pregnant. And then that switch happens in our brain. And we're like, okay, we want to get pregnant. We stop taking the pills, stop taking whatever contraception, and it doesn't happen immediately. And you're like, fuck, there's something wrong with me because sister so-and-so told me that I was going to get pregnant straight away. And so there's a number of things that collide, in my opinion. You know, you've got the lack of education, so you've got an unrealistic expectation of what it's going to be like, and then you've often got a group of friends who are telling you that it's dead easy for them, and then all those people who are struggling, who are a lot of people, are not necessarily always willing to talk about it. So you feel very, very isolated, and very quickly I see it all the time in that there's a bit of a division in groups of friends where it suddenly becomes those who are conceiving and having children and those who aren't.
Yeah. And I actually think, to maybe make matters even more complicated, within groups of friends, you have those who want children and those who don't. Within that, you've got these two subgroups of the people who are trying to conceive. You've got the ones who it happens really, really easily for, the ones who are potentially not talking about it, feeling maybe jealous, feeling maybe some shame, often feeling like you're being left behind.
Yeah.
You can have really empathetic people who just don't relate because they're not at that stage or they don't want children. But then you've also got the other side of people who are like, this is just not on my radar.
Yeah.
So all of that combined, yeah, it can feel pretty lonely out there, can't it?
Yeah, it really can. And I think it can happen very, very quickly. You know, your early 30s or late 20s, everybody's kind of like, you're in big groups of friends, everyone's getting married, there's lots of weddings, lots of social activity. And it very quickly can become, that feeling of isolation can grow.
So what I want to think about today is how people who are listening, who might feel any sense of that isolation, I want to talk about how people can find the right trying to conceive community and avoid the wrong ones whilst they're on this journey.
Yeah.
So what do you think are the signs of a healthy, good for you community?
Oh, that is a good question, because let's face it, some of them are like the Wild West.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think any that are really salesy, first of all. So and I know some of them some memberships are paid memberships, and that's not what I mean, because I think there is a value in some paid memberships. But those ones where it's kind of, you're being sold to all the time, or when you're in there's a lot of marketing messages that are coming up. I think that is a bit of a red flag to me. Ones that kind of promise the answer, any that kind of have guarantees of we know the way, or those kind of certainties, the language that is used. So I think it's about finding a space that is a supportive space, that's not selling, that's not going to cost you loads of money, that's not going to guarantee you something that is probably nobody, because there are no guarantees in any fertility space. So any of that kind of language that's being used in any of them, I think for me, they are the red flags that I would be looking out for.
Yeah, I completely couldn't agree more with that. And even on social media, any post that comes up where somebody is saying do these 3 things to get pregnant this year, I'm like, oh no, that's a firm block or unfollow from me, because it's just actually really wildly unhelpful, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's really hard, isn't it? Because Instagram is a hard one, because, you know, it's all about catching someone's attention in those first 3 seconds and all of that. And I get it, but deeply think they're wrong in this space, to be honest, is my gut feeling.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting. Shall we talk a little bit about social media?
Yes, please. Because do you want to ask a question, or do you want me to just start my rant?
Please rant. It's very complicated, isn't it?
It is. And, you know, we've done a whole podcast episode on it because it is complicated. But increasingly, I have the conversation with every single person that I work with, whether they're in clinic or in the community, about what is happening with your social media. Like, is it serving you? We're gently suggesting to people to really reflect on their social media use, because yes, it can be amazing. You can find out lots and lots of information. You can do all that research. And I think when you're trying to conceive, empowering yourself with information is one of the best things that you can do. But there also comes a point where you can get overwrought and overwhelmed with the amount of information out there. And you have to be really careful about what your sources are, because you can get the wrong information or information that's not relevant to you. So I just ask people to take a really honest look at what is happening to their brain, because you open your phone and you might see a pregnancy announcement that you didn't know was coming, or you'll see a 3 hooks, I did these 3 things and I got pregnant thing, and so you're down a rabbit hole of how much should I need to do that? Have I missed that? Do I need to now start taking that supplement? I mean, if it's a pregnancy announcement, it's a major stress response that you're having, and there's no preparation for it, there's no warning for it, and I think that it's not good to be doing it all the time. And often what I'll say to people is maybe boundary yourself. So I often say to people, do a sift through your feed and get rid of things that are triggering you, and also boundary when you go on your phone. So say, okay, I'm going to do 30 minutes of scrolling and then I'm going to come off. Set your timers, do your limits, don't go on it first thing in the morning, because that can really help, because they're made to be addictive. It's
absolutely are. Yeah, they really are. I'm starting up my podcast, this podcast. I have been on social media way more than I ever was before. But one thing that I am more protected from is friends' pregnancy announcements, because I treat my social media as more of a professional one. My personal one, I'm on way less. When I do go onto it, I'm like, ooh, it's like a barrage. And at the moment, it's even worse because we're renovating our kitchen. We're selling stuff on Facebook Marketplace. Never go on Facebook. I literally go on it to sell a dining chair. And the next thing I know, I've seen 3 people that I haven't thought about for decades on their 2nd or 3rd child. And I'm triggered.
We used to have our community on Facebook when we first set it up, and that is exactly why we came off Facebook.
Really?
So we're in an independent network where you don't go through any social media to get onto it, because people were coming on to go access a group to get support, and in that process we're seeing exactly what you've said, and then it negates any advantage you get from coming in that community.
You still have an online community, don't you?
Yeah, so we run our community in a place called Mighty. So Mighty is for networks. So it's away from the algorithm. Nobody sells you anything. So it's a completely safe space from being hit by any ads or announcements or seeing anyone else. You can come in anonymously. You don't have to use your name. People just use their initials, and you can find out who's in your local area. You can find out who, we've got different topic message boards for different topics. So you can kind of navigate it in a way that suits you, as opposed to be exposed to a whole tranche of fertility information. You could be in the natural fertility section, or you could be in the miscarriage section, the trying to conceive after loss section, secondary infertility, that kind of thing, so that people can feel safe within the spaces as well, because obviously people have lots of different backgrounds that bring them in the first place.
Absolutely. And those rules and boundaries, that seems really important to me when it comes to these online forums. I think just the fact that you can be there speaking to or looking at messages from people who are literally in your specific part of the journey. And I've had a couple of people mention other ones as well. IVF BFF have got a WhatsApp group, which is along these same lines. And I think that those kinds of online communities, which are set up by people who get it and done really sensitively, feel very sensible.
Sean and Catherine met in our Facebook group.
She said this. That's incredible.
I just love the power of community, because they saw each other in the group, hadn't seen each other for a long time, and they were like, this is not the group any of us want to be in.
No.
And reached out and reconnected.
I mean, it's the whole worst club, best people thing, isn't it? And this is something that I feel passionately about, is the ability to talk about it. Some people want to talk about it openly. I have felt quite happy telling everybody about what stage we're on as time's gone on, just because that is what works for me. But I think even if you are choosing to join an online community anonymously, facelessly, there is this empathy and this cheerleading that you don't see in everyday society that I have seen just so beautifully. And it really has, despite all of the bad things about social media, it's kind of reminded me of the power of these online portals and social media as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It is something really special about it. And, I've read that there's a lot of books about the power of networks and the power of community and the power of healing when you come together with people of the same background. Like it physically changes your physiology to connect with somebody going through something similar to you. It has health benefits, physical health benefits, as well as emotional health benefits. And it's well studied and it's well documented. So I think it's a really under-resourced tool that we use as a society. And I don't know why that is, but that's my observation.
And, if there is anyone who's listening who thinks that, they'd like to join some kind of an online or even in-person community, but they're nervous about taking that first step, would you have any advice for them?
Yeah, I mean, I would say tiptoe into the water. So, for example, you could come into our community or any of the others, so many good ones out there. You could go in as an anonymous observer. So you could go in, you don't have to introduce yourself. You could go in and have a look around and see if it fits with you. So you could go and try a few of them as well. The British Fertility Society run them. I know that Fertility Action run them, the Worst Girl Gang. There's lots and lots of different options, lots of different specialities depending on your background and what your needs are. And see how that feels. And then maybe over time you might feel brave that you want to ask a question or you want to come to an event. We do walk and talks where we meet people in our local area and we talk and walk. It's as simple as that. And I am always amazed at the fantastic women who turn up to our walks, because I'm not sure I would be brave enough to do that. And it might be that you're not ready to get to that stage yet, but maybe just hanging out online could be a good place to start. And what I always say, if it's not for you, that's absolutely fine.
I agree. I completely agree. Can we talk a bit about friends and family and navigating those relationships? We've kind of touched on it with regards to the friends, but I'd like to think a little bit about those people who don't get it, or also those people who maybe say the wrong thing without realizing. I think the whole title of your business basically hinges on probably the most frustrating thing that people say. And when I recently put a question box onto Instagram and said, what's the most frustrating thing that anyone said to you? I think about 50 people responded with, just relax, go on holiday, stop stressing about it and it'll happen. Given your expertise on this topic in particular, is there anything that you would say about people trying to educate those friends and family who don't get it? Or do you think that at a certain point you just are better to ignore and maybe distance yourself a little bit?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think there's probably a couple of different ways of looking at it. One is, having conversation, if you feel like you've got the energy and the wherewithal to have those conversations, then they can be really helpful, because a lot of the time it comes from people not knowing, a lack of education, a lack of personal experience. So if you've got the wherewithal and the energy to say, look, I'm going to just explain to you what it's like for me, then that can be really, really powerful, and it can be really life-changing, and people can really understand. Because as we talked about at the beginning, when you stay quiet about something and you're not discussing it with other people, people don't know what you're going through. So it's very easy to assume that everything is okay. And so I think there is an element of that if you want, but I also think it's not your job to do it. You're going through something really difficult. The last thing you want on top of that, of dealing with your own emotions, is having to deal with the emotions and the education of those around you. So interestingly, I did a great podcast just before Christmas with Tim, who did the film It's the Hope That Kills You.
Ah,
The
yes, I
short
remember
film.
you talking about this.
Him and his wife went through multiple rounds of IVF. And he made this very short film about him and his wife sitting in the waiting room, waiting to go in for their embryo transfer. And it is an amazing short film. And he made it with the idea that you could send it to your family and friends and say, you know what, you want to know what it's like? Watch this film. And I thought, yes, that is exactly what people need, is something that, you could just say, look, I haven't got the energy to talk to you about this. Watch this and, come back to me.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that's an amazing idea, and I need to watch that film now.
I'll send you the link.
That
Yeah.
would be great. Yeah, that
It's
sounds
very
fab.
powerful.
And I think, just coming back to social media, something that I've noticed is that, because my attitude is to be quite kind of raw about these things and sometimes inject a little bit of humor just in these situations where, people say things that piss you off, or that just grate on you. And I definitely see, when I'm looking at the analytics, I see quite high levels of people sharing those. And I do wonder whether, maybe this is just me getting overexcited, but I hope and I wonder whether there are people who are seeing things and sharing it with friends and family so that they understand it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing, the kind of irony, humor side of things are a good way, because people will watch it.
Yeah. And it softens it, because
Yeah.
it's such a heavy topic, and you don't
Yeah.
want to add extra, stress to your life by burning all your bridges. But that being said, I'd like to talk about putting in place some boundaries, and when you think it's okay to say no to things, say no to plans,
Yeah.
if you know that that is not going to serve you.
I mean, I'm a big fan, and I'm a big cheerleader for every person that I work with, of helping them to say no.
Yeah.
And I say this as a woman who equally finds it difficult to say no. I'm a people pleaser. I do not want to piss other people off. So I'm not saying this like I can nail this in my own life, but my job and my role as an acupuncturist is definitely to help people make those braver decisions. Because I often have conversations with people around, often it's around work, boundaries around work.
Yeah.
And do you need to do that? Do you need to be in the office for that meeting? Could you say no to it? And I often say to people, it's okay to say no. It's okay to take time off. It's okay to go to your GP and ask to be signed off sick if your workplace are not accommodating your needs. It's okay to not go to your friend's baby shower, your friend's birthday party, the wedding, whatever it is. And I won't say to that person, you have to say no. I'll say it's okay to say no. And it's about validating people's feelings. Like, this is really hard. What you're going through is really difficult. I'm validating how you're feeling, and I'm saying and suggesting that saying no is also okay. Yeah. And also, I think a lot of the time people don't even think that they can say no. And so just putting it out there, saying to people, you can take time off. This is surgery. This is medical treatment. This is really stressful. This is trauma. This is PTSD. It's okay to take time off. And people often say, I'd never even thought of saying no.
Such a good point. And I've always been a bit of a people pleaser too. And last year, I spent quite a lot of my time saying no to things. And I had a work day where we had to think really carefully about the things in our life that bring us joy. And I realized on reflection that I had been saying no to so many times where I could have been having a laugh with friends and family, because I was nervous that I wouldn't feel up for it. I was nervous that I'd be pregnant. I was nervous that I wouldn't be pregnant, that I wouldn't be drinking and I wouldn't be fun and I wouldn't have a fun time. I think striking the balance is really bloody hard. But one thing that I've tried to go into this year thinking, so year 2 of trying to conceive, where we are going through IVF, I'm trying to go into this with a new approach, which is you can say yes and then you can cancel. Yeah. That's okay.
Yes, I like that.
And also, you can say yes and you can go for 2 hours. And then even though it's not over, you can go home and that is also okay. And I think that's been a really helpful one for me. Often managing people's expectations, saying, I'm going to say yes to this holiday for now because this sounds amazing, but will it be a real pain if I pull out? I'd like to be there, but I'm just not ready to 100% book my flights right now. But my mindset has been much better for that.
Yeah.
If there's anyone listening who is a friend or a family member of someone on a fertility journey, and they are wondering how they can kind of ease the pressure of invites or social gatherings, do you have any advice for them?
I mean, I think it's about being honest, isn't it? About having those honest conversations about, if you want to come, great, my door is open.
Yeah.
If you don't want to come, absolutely fine, no pressure. I also think that kind of check-in of, I'm just letting you know I'm here,
Yeah.
is a really good one, as opposed to asking questions, because I know they come from a good place. I know you want to know the answer, but sometimes it's, rather than saying, how's everything going? How's the, it's actually saying, I hope I'm thinking of you.
Yeah.
If there's anything you need, here I am.
Yeah.
And it's, I think the language is slightly different. It's slightly kind of, not asking anything of them, but telling them that you're there for them, I think is a nice way to think about it. And, and also saying to people, if you want to ask questions, let's go.
Yeah.
But it's about giving that option about, what do you need? Do you want to, go out to the cinema and we won't mention it? Or do you want to do a full debrief? Because it will be different and it will change. And it might change from day to day, hour to hour. But it's about having that sensitivity where you're really giving people the options of all the ways that you can show up as a friend or a family member.
Yeah. Really good advice. And one thing that my mum and dad said recently, because they were trying to organise a weekend to come up and visit us, I was like, I just don't know if we can quite commit to that right now. I'm not sure how I'm going to be feeling. Mum was like, don't worry, there's no pressure. We're just a support team, which is obviously something that only like really special family can do, when it is that, proper love with no expectation of anything else. But felt really nice to hear that. So sometimes just saying you're the support team is really lovely.
Yeah, those words land so much nicer than let's come up at this weekend and is that okay, sort of thing, where you're pushing it back in their court. That lands much nicer, softer.
Yeah, no, that's great. One final thing that I'd like us to talk about before we wrap up is, so let's say that you are quite well balanced in terms of your community. You've got your protective spaces over here where it's just your people that you are going through this with. That might be strangers and that's okay. Or it might be select friends who have been through this before. And then you have your existing friends as well. And one of them gets pregnant.
Yeah.
These announcements, I don't think we can really talk about surrounding yourself with positive people and friends and family without talking about that, because it's the reality, isn't it?
Yeah.
So do you have any words of wisdom on how to navigate that like massive frog in your throat feeling that you might get when one of your close friends or someone in your circle announces a pregnancy and you're still not there?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that I always say to people is, whatever your reaction is completely okay.
Yeah.
Because what you do not want to do is put guilt and shame on top of that feeling. So if your feeling is just jealousy, resentment, absolutely that is okay. You are a human being, and why would you not be? But it's such a difficult feeling to sit with. So I always think, be really kind to yourself with whatever comes up. You can feel two things at once. You can feel happy for your friend.
Yes, I always say
And
this.
for yourself. That is also an option. Or you can not feel happy for your friend. You can go into the full place of whatever it is, and that is also okay. And I think, it's about just being really, really nice to yourself, finding someone that you could rant to about it, talking about it, writing about it, in some way getting it out of your brain,
Yeah.
I think can be really, really helpful. Just that kind of movement of that energy out is good.
Yeah.
And then sitting with it with time, because I know it's a really cheesy thing to say, and I hate it when people say it, but I am going to say it because I know that it is true, that
Yeah.
time is a healer, and that how you feel about it in that moment might not be how you feel about it further down the line. It might stay with you for a long time. That's okay. But there will come a point at some point further down the line where your feelings won't be so strong about it.
And try and remind yourself that it doesn't mean there's one less baby to go around, because I think that's often where your irrational thoughts lead you to is, well, because that's happened to them, it means it's less likely to happen to me.
Yeah.
And that's not like, it's totally understandable that people feel that way, but it's not the case, is it?
No. And also I think then, I mean, you can get into some really knotty weeds around, I'm having these negative thoughts, and it's these negative thoughts that are giving negative vibes, and that those
Yeah.
vibes mean that I'm not going to be the one that gets pregnant, or these vibes are now impacting my progesterone levels. So, like you can really go into some deep, deep, dark water that is very dark
Just
and
not
not
helpful,
nice.
and it's not true, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that's why I think talking about it or writing it down is like, because sometimes you need someone to help you out of that weed, someone to help you kind of think more clearly. It's very difficult when you've got a lot of irrational thoughts going around your own brain, it's difficult to pull yourself out of that. And, that's why we often talk a lot about seeking some counseling, some CBT, because those having someone to really help you pull out and look at those thought processes and look at where they've come from and unpick them can really help you navigate a way of dealing with it when it happens again going forward, because it's hard, it's really, really hard.
There's no rule book. And I think you're completely right about being able to talk about it. Maybe you can talk about it with another friend, or maybe that is your opportunity to go on a walk and talk, or go onto a forum or a chat, because everybody who is in that forum that will be a shared experience, won't it?
Yes. And what do they say? Do they say shame grows when nobody knows?
Oh, I like
So
that.
when I think I actually just made that up so we could
Oh, I
copy it.
like it. I think we'll coin it.
That's like the Brené Brown in me coming out now. But it's like this idea, isn't it, that shame is a very personal experience, a very personal emotion, and it sits heavy if it's not shared with other people. And sharing shame and sharing the stories and how you feel about it really helps dissipate that shame.
I think one thing that this journey has taught me is that no thought that you have, no matter how intrusive or like shameful it might feel, is ever unique. The amount of
Yeah.
times that I've put something on my Instagram and gone, I can't believe I've just said that. And suddenly my DMs have absolutely blown up with all these people going, oh my God, I'm so glad that you said that. I've been thinking that.
And that's so powerful, isn't it? That is the power exactly of what we've just been talking about.
Yeah.
The power of community is that you're
Yes.
bringing out those dark, deep thoughts that people are like, does this make me a really bad person? And I think when somebody shares it and everybody jumps on it and goes, yes, that's like, for me, that is healing. It's a healing process.
I think it is. It's very cathartic.
Yeah.
And it's really validating.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Is there anything else that you think we need to cover on this topic?
I think that I would just say, if you find a group or you find a connection and it's not working for you, don't give up. I would say find something else, I know it's hard because it's sometimes the energy to find these things feels like a lot, but finding something, whether it's a knitting group, it doesn't even have to be related to fertility, but finding a way to connect with people on whether it's around fertility or not, completely away from it, I think is a really, really powerful tool. And I think it's really, really important. And so I think getting out there and connecting, whether it is online or in whatever way you can be really, really beneficial.
It's really good advice. And actually, what you're saying there, I think transcribes really well to this idea of hobbies, like whether that's playing a sport or, as you say, joining an art group or something. Because one thing that I've definitely noticed is that often trying to conceive is coupled with trying to be healthy, which might mean that you're not drinking. It might mean that you're trying not to go to bed too late. It might mean that you are really trying to like protect your your routine a bit more. But actually, if you can find something which is really healthy, and I don't mean that in terms of like, going to gym classes necessarily, but just good for you, that also allows you to be sociable.
Yeah.
Thanks, Hannah. Do you want to give us a final shout out for where people can find a community within the Don't Tell Me to Relax space?
Yeah, so if you just Google now, because our website is now all Don't Tell Me to Relax. Yay! Never rebrand, it's my advice. But anyway, we are where we are. So if you Google Don't Tell Me to Relax, you will come up with our web page. And in there is a community page. So you just need to register your details. Like I said, you can do it anonymously. And we are there. We are free. We have a monthly drop-in support group run by the amazing Carly. We have loads of webinars that we've done over the years on everything from progesterone support to thin linings, to tracking your cycle, to cervical mucus, to male fertility, to microbiomes. We've got it all. Lots and lots of webinars, lots of handouts, lots of resources. And then we've got all our events that we've got coming up. And then we've got all our message boards. So hopefully there is something in there that will be helpful.
Oh, that's fab. Thank you so much for coming on today. And it's just been great, and I'm so looking forward to more episodes of your podcast and hopefully doing a little bit more of this as well.
Oh, thank you. It's been really nice to be on someone else's podcast.
It takes the pressure off a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah. Thanks, Issy. It's lovely to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.